Danny from Weird and Wired, and this is a Teisco SG that I have modified with a rubber bridge. A rubber bridge guitar has a really unique sound, especially when paired with flat-wound strings and gold foil pickups, which is why I did this modification on this guitar, because it already had a nice pair of gold foil pickups. A rubber bridge has a softer, more muted quality than a conventional guitar bridge, and it's a modification that I've been wanting to do for a little while now. I've recently been talking to Jack from Jack's Guitarcheology, who gave me some great tips and advice with all things rubber bridges, because he does some phenomenal work making rubber bridge guitars, as well as just stocking some of the wackiest, most wonderful gear out there. So huge shout out to Jack for his guidance in this modification. Before we go over the modification process, let's go over what this guitar is. This is a Teisco SG. These were made in Japan in the early 60s, and they were imported to the UK and the USA, where they would often be rebranded, rebadged, which is why you'll see the same model guitars with a lot of different names attached to them. They were marketed as affordable guitars at the time, and recently there's definitely been a resurgence for these. And is it just nostalgia, or is there something to these guitars? Originally I restored this to stock as it would have come from the factory, and it was a great little guitar. I absolutely love this era of guitar, the 60s affordable Teiscos and Ks. They're really charming and quirky short scale instruments. The pickups on these guitars really stand out to me. They've definitely got their own unique tonal characteristics, much how a single coil differs from a humbucker, differs from a P90. These gold foil pickups really have their own thing going on. The reason that I thought about turning this into a rubber bridge guitar was the saddle piece. It's a really interesting design which has individual saddles which can roll left and right. You can really hone in your string spacing on this. But I was looking at it and I thought, I wonder if I could just slide all of those saddles straight off. And unsurprisingly, you can. So I was just left with just a saddle piece with no saddles, and I thought that's a great place to start for trying to turn this into a rubber bridge guitar. There's numerous ways to make a rubber bridge, and none of them are wrong. That's the beautiful thing about this modification. It's really finding what works for you and what is creating the sound that you want to hear. I wanted a really muted quality to it, and I tried a few different materials. In the end, I found some rubber at a local craft shop, which gave me the sound exactly that I wanted. It's just a case of experimenting until you find what works for you. As I said before, flat wound strings work really well for the rubber bridge sound. However, flat wound strings tend to be quite a heavy gauge, and with this being a short scale instrument, I knew that this would not cope well with those heavier gauge strings in standard tuning. But I was pretty hopeful I could get this to a baritone tuning and it would sit comfortably, play well, and the stars must have aligned because it worked an absolute treat for this. I did make some additional modifications as well. I replaced the original plastic bushings. They were a little bit too thick to allow these heavier gauge strings to wrap around, so I replaced them with some thinner metal bushings. I also had to reposition the ground wire from the saddle to the tailpiece. With the strings now sitting on a rubber bridge as opposed to a metal bridge, the ground has been moved to the tailpiece, so it's making contact with the ball end of the strings. So that is how this short scale baritone rubber bridge guitar came to be, and here is how it sounds. So there we go, this Teisco SG short scale baritone rubber bridge guitar. I'm real happy with how this came out. It's been an absolute treat, a lot of fun, really enjoyable working out how to do this and, you know, putting it together, and it's really fun to play. The baritone tuning is also something that's a bit new to me, so baritone tunings and rubber bridges are two things I'm looking forward to experimenting with a lot more. And as I say, the rubber bridge modification, I don't think there's any real rules. There's no right way or wrong way on how to do it. It's all experimenting until you get the sound that you want. I would love to know what you guys think. Are you familiar with rubber bridge guitars? Do you like the sound of them? Do you like the sound of this one? Is it something that you've made for yourself? Is it something you want to go away and try out for yourself? Let me know all your thoughts and feelings, and until the next time, keep it weird and keep it wired.